This program contains descriptions of violence, drug use, and sexual assault. Listener discretion is advised. Previously on True Texas Crime.
Angela was about 13, I think, when she was in my class. I have never forgotten Angela. I thought she was as cute as she could be. I've wished a million times that I had reached out more to her family, because I just want them to know that she has not been forgotten by me.
Then my aunt calls me back and she says, call Lee, see if he's seen her. He won't answer. He won't talk to me. He won't answer my calls. So she gave me Lee's number and I called him. I remember hanging up that call and I said, I don't know what happened or what has happened, but he knows. And my mom kind of got on to me and she said, you can't accuse somebody. We don't know what's going on yet. We just know we don't know where she is right now. And I said, but he does.
Holly Southard considered Angela one of her closest friends and remembers knowing Angela since third grade.
I don't remember meeting her. She just was always there. I don't know how to remember. I don't remember if she was there before me or after me. It was third grade, so it was kind of a blur.
Holly immediately said yes when I asked her to come and share about Angela and all things Princeton. Holly is the middle daughter of James and Deborah Southard. The Southard family moved to Princeton from Farmersville in 1980 when James got a job to be the president at the local bank. Farmersville was a tiny town 8 miles east of Princeton. Deborah had already been the one and only 8th grade English teacher at Princeton Middle School since 1978, so it was an easy move for the family. In 1978, Princeton only had one elementary school, one middle school, and one high school. Today, Princeton has 8 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 2 high schools. Deborah was probably the most popular middle school teacher in the history of Princeton. In fact, one of Princeton's 3 current middle schools is named Southard Middle School. Holly and I were in drama together. Holly's older sister, Kelly, was my classmate, and I'm happy to say we're still very close friends today. And the youngest of the Southard gals was Carrie. Carrie was my student in 1993 during my brief time as the high school drama teacher in Princeton following my college graduation. Carrie, now Carrie Southard Hargrave, is the executive producer of this podcast. This is True Texas Crime, The Significant Life of Angela Stevens. Episode 3, The Secrets We Keep.
My family and I moved to Princeton in 1980. I was in the 3rd grade. We moved to Princeton, actually just 8 miles down the road from Farmersville, because my dad was named vice president of the bank there in Princeton. And so we moved in and actually bought our cousin's house, which was right across the street from the only school besides elementary. Middle school, high school was all together in one building. And so we moved right across the street there.
What's your first, solid memories of Angie?
Her laugh. She had the best laugh. And she was so tiny. She was this tiny person, 5 foot nothing, maybe 100 pounds. I mean, at her biggest, that's what I'm talking about. So back then it was even smaller, right? But she had the biggest smile on her face always. And just this giggle and laugh that was so much bigger than she was. That just it drew me to her, because she just was always just looked like she had sunshine coming out of her.
Princeton Elementary, I think like most schools, had the students stay in one class with one teacher for the entire day. You only got to see friends not in your class at recess or group assemblies. Do you remember, were you in a class with her after 3rd grade?
I think I was in 5th grade with her. I think we were in Miss Fire's class together, actually.
Did you guys, sit with each other at lunch or anything like that?
Yeah, we did. We'd talk and we'd write notes.
It was very exciting to move up to 6th grade, because that's when you had a different teacher for each subject. And because the town was so small, odds were you had at least one class with every single student in your grade. Holley says she remembers really starting to spend more time with Angela once they started 6th grade year.
Back then you wrote on your notebook who you liked or wrote letters back and forth and you signed it with the person's name you like. I mean, that's from 5th grade on through 8th grade when I really knew Angela. That's when we would do stuff like that and got to know each other because my mom was a teacher too. And so she was in my mom's class. And I mean, we just, and it's such a small school, you just kind of know everybody.
When do you remember when you became boy crazy in school? I remember it was after my dad died in 1983. I was obsessed with daytime soap operas, and the plot line was always about the couple getting together and making love for the first time. And so I was just like, oh my God, I have to have a boyfriend. I have to find someone to kiss me and have sex with eventually when I'm old enough. And, it's probably going to be the person I marry, all this crazy stuff. When do you remember kind of being boy crazy yourself? Or were you not? Were you something else?
I really wasn't. I pretty much looked like a boy until I was a sophomore in high school. And I didn't hit puberty till then. So I was a tomboy until then. So I had a bunch of guy friends. I think the first time I ever kissed somebody was, and Angela was there. It was, so I remember her being there because it's your first kiss. You remember that stuff. We were playing, I think, Spin the Bottle or Truth or Dare. There was a bunch of us there.
Was it like a party or was it just let's all meet after school and play Spin the Bottle, Truth or Dare?
It was just like a summer thing where you just kind of hung out because we walked everywhere in Princeton.
So that's interesting that Angie was there. What do you remember about Angie and boys?
Very boy crazy since I ever met her. She always there was always somebody she liked. There was always somebody, and if that it didn't work out, then there was another. There's always somebody on the bench. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Now, were you involved in that? Because what I remember was that the whole thing was you found a friend that would be hey, will you find out at lunch?
I was the person in the group that the girls would come to and say, see if so-and-so likes me. See if Tracy or Scott, whoever likes me, because I was friends with the guys. It was just easy for me to talk to them. And there was no attraction in that way, but on either side between the guys and myself. So it was just easy for me to talk to. And I'd be like, yeah, sure. So it was never, I was always the person that was in charge of that.
What do you first remember about Lee Henson?
I remember him mainly because Angie liked him. I remember that's when he first got on my radar. As a long time she liked him. I wouldn't say 6th grade, 7th grade maybe. She liked him for a very long time. I kept notes and all kinds of stuff from back then, and in one of my yearbooks too. Angie wrote, Angie loves Lee. And then she wrote Angela Henson, so when you sign your name, with your person you want to marry and you use their last name. At the time, I think I liked maybe Ross or somebody.
I took Ross to one of my proms, by the way. His name has come up more than once. Very, very wonderful person.
And so she put Holly and Ross forever and Angie and Lee forever. I mean, that went back to I'm going to say 6th or 7th grade. And I knew Lee because he played football too. He was a football player. And then also the skating rink is where everybody in Princeton, that's the only thing to do in Princeton.
It's my understanding that Angie and Lee met mainly because Lee was spending a lot of time at the Chandlers, who lived in the pasture behind her house, and they would play together basketball and things like that. Do you have any remembrance of her sharing the first time that she spent time with him? And
I just remember that she's for just such a long time, he was always on her radar, since I can remember.
Do you remember when it turned into a physical relationship?
Oh, very early. I mean, she would tell me stories about that. Like you said, she was boy crazy, and she was.
What was the conversation like?
It was more of a first base, second base type, third base conversation. Because I was definitely way, way behind the 8 ball, and I was never anywhere near that, nothing. And so I was like, what do you do? How do you, like, she was tell me what would happen and stuff. So she was um, probably more mature in that way, I guess I would say, than anybody I knew. She matured earlier than I did physically, even though she was smaller.
Holly and I talked about boys and all the normal sexual feelings we were having as teens. But I think it's important to say we were made to feel shame about these feelings. We were taught by some of our churches, our moms, even by our friends, that sex before marriage was what bad girls did. I think the conversation is that she was a normal girl with exploring normal hormones.
Yes.
Seemingly without shame. Because what I remember about Angie is that she was younger than me, and I remember always seeing her in the hallway. She was so tiny that she really stood out in that way, but always just this super bright smile, like, hi, how are you? Just to everyone.
Yes.
But I do remember, because I was going through this phase of oh my God, I've got to lose my virginity. I remember thinking, wow, that girl, she's having sex and she's enjoying it. And I'm very into her sexual freedom, her ability to just walk around school and not worry if someone thinks she's a slut.
Yeah, she was, and it did hurt her feelings. She heard those people say stuff about her and whisper behind her back, and it did hurt her feelings.
There was this automatic judgment of, well, she's doing it too early, and do they really love each other? It was just crazy. And now I feel like, oh my God, I was so harsh about this person who was just kind of living the life I wanted to be living, fearlessly.
I'm not saying that every guy she was with that she was in love with, but I know she was in love with Lee. I know that she thought he loved her.
Now, Lee had a girlfriend who we're not going to mention her by name. I'm confused about reading through the trial, and just to the best of my memory, he had this cheerleader girlfriend who is a lovely person, by the way, and that Angie was the side piece.
Exactly.
Can you kind of comment on that?
So Angie dropped out of school, I think right after 8th grade. His girlfriend, she didn't know, obviously, anything about what was going on there. I think Angie's thought process during that time, because she still saw Lee all the time, even though she wasn't at school. They saw each other anyway. She still lived at home, and they saw each other. So I think that she just was like, well, when school's out, that's going to be over, and he and I are going to end up together anyway, because they were together a lot of the weekends. They hung out together all the time. He would probably drop his girlfriend off and then go pick up Angela. That was kind of the deal. I know she knew he had a girlfriend, but you're 15, 16 years old, and the guy who you're completely in love with is telling you, this is not, I'm just doing this because I'm in football, she's a cheerleader, this is what we do. And that's, he swindled her into thinking she was more important.
Do you remember going to any kind of parties? She was with Lee, or was Lee possibly at the party with the girlfriend and Angie was there too?
I'm sure that happened. Probably happened multiple times. I don't have a single memory of it, or that she would need to get back. It seems like I remember she needed to get home, or she was going to meet Lee later that night. Several times that we would be at parties and stuff that she would have to leave, or sometimes, I just remember that there were times that they were in the same place together, where Lee and his girlfriend, and she was there with a bunch of people. There were definitely times that had happened.
Do you know if he was ever abusive to her in any way, physically grabbing her?
She never mentioned if he was physically abusive towards her. He definitely psychologically abused her.
Yeah, being someone's second choice and having another person is very psychologically abusive.
Yeah. And making you think that your worth is just only because you're with him. So, that. So he definitely had a hold on her.
As adults, it's easy to think back on these things and have a different perspective. But as a young teenager then, do you remember her talking about, well, he's confusing me, he's sending me mixed signal?
I'm sure I said it. Like, what are you doing? Like, he obviously is into her, and but she always had an excuse. I didn't see her that much after probably sophomore year because I just didn't. You know, it was just, she wasn't around as much. I was just super busy and had a license at that point, and I didn't, and unfortunately, we didn't keep in touch as much back when she was going to school. If she missed the bus or didn't have a ride, she would come over to our house because we lived right across the street. She would just come over. She'd come over and watch MTV with me and Dave Williams, Headbangers Ball. We would do stuff. She would do stuff like that. So whenever I heard she was first missing, because this is before internet, cell phones, pagers, anything. It was just landline stuff. That I, immediately people thought, well, she's at some friend's house. Like she's just at some friend's house and she's going to show up, because that wasn't that unusual for her to do that. And again, landlines. And some people didn't have phones, believe it or not. Not even landlines back then, especially out in the country. And so I think initially that's what I thought and kind of what everybody thought for the first day or two. And then after that, it was pretty clear there was something wrong.
Did you have any thoughts when it came to the time of something's wrong? What were your initial thoughts too?
I never in a million years thought that Lee had anything to do. That never crossed my mind. I mean, I thought this kid, and looking back now, I would have never thought him because he was our quarterback of our football team. Seemed like he had a good life. I know he was living with the Chandlers at the time, but they did that so he could finish school out in Princeton. And I mean, besides the fact that I didn't like how you treated Angie, I didn't think he had anything like that in him.
Let's talk about the Chandlers for a minute, in that the Chandlers were kind of revered as these are good people.
They are.
If someone was invited to live at the Chandlers' house, that was an endorsement of character.
Yeah. I mean, and that family, and to this day, I mean, they did a lot of stuff for Lee. And you never would have thought that. I mean, there was sometimes, I thought he was a jerk because, like I said, his treatment of Angie, but that was the only thing I had against him. He was never ever thought anything. And I didn't know the other two guys. They were older.
I did not know Rodney and John either. As Holley and I got deeper into conversation, we discussed how unfair we think Angela was treated.
And I hate not trying to pull her out of the relationship with him. I mean, I don't know that anybody could have at that point. And I think that, stop glorifying these boys. And that, like you said, the first thing that people were saying, well, they just threw their lives away. That was the first thing people were worried about.
Then I decided to share with Holley my traumatic high school experience. My own trip to an empty field outside of Princeton. One of the reasons that I want to do this podcast, and one of the reasons I feel this connection to Angie and what happened to her, even though I didn't hang out with her, is that I was sexually assaulted in high school. In my obsession of, I need to be loved and have, one thing about the soap operas was it was always the super couple, like Bo and Hope, Luke and Laura, whatever. I was like looking for my Bo Brady, we'll say. And I got really drunk a couple of times in high school. Each one were very bad incidents. I remember everything that happened on those nights, except for the blackout parts. I just remember them all being very bad times. And one time it was my friend's surprise birthday party. We went to Melissa, a group of us in the car. and we were drinking on the way back to the friend's house. We were supposed to deliver her for the surprise. And I drank 4 bottles in James wine coolers between Melissa and Princeton. Is that maybe a 15, 20-minute drive? I don't know. And I remember in the car going to the party being like, I'm going to lose my virginity tonight. Like, this is it. This is the night. And I remember, like, in the party, like, making this announcement to many people. And I also remember couples were there, and Kelly and Randy were there, your sister and now brother-in-law. And I remember going up to them, just talking about this obsession with judgment and what we are and aren't supposed to be doing. I remember drunk as a skunk being, I want you to know it's okay that you're having sex with each other. That I needed to, like, give them a free, like, I am so worried about, I mean, I still, struggle with judgment, moral compass, God, what's going to happen after we're gone. I was just so obsessed with the idea of I would have sex, but also that it might be bad. And then, it's a lot. So the next thing I remember is being taken to the back room by my friend Chris, who was trying to take care of me, I remember. Then I woke up in the middle of a field. I think it was Ticky Creek Park. And I was in the back of my car, and this guy was trying to have sex with me. And I think I gave him a blowjob. I remember getting out of the car and vomiting, and that being something I was like, oh my God. And then I remember being back in the car, and I remember I was wearing a mini skirt, and he was just like trying so hard to have sex with me. And I remember saying, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. And just kind of, twisting and turning. And it didn't, he did not penetrate me. The next thing I remember, I woke up in the back of my car again with a different guy. And I remember he was having oral sex with me. I will say I remember enjoying the feeling of the oral sex then. I do remember that, and having all these conflicting thoughts years later of, well, I must have enjoyed it or liked it. So I really believe in that your body reacts the way the body would react. And when I say enjoy it, I don't remember being like, oh my God, this is fun. I just remember my body positively responding the way it would with sexual activity happening. My sister showed up at the party. I guess she had been at the Easy Mart, and someone said, your sister's at a party telling everyone she wants to lose her virginity tonight. You need to go get her. I remember my sister yanking me out of my car and putting me in her car. And I remember hitting my head on her car and being locked in my room going to my room that night, and my mom just really devastated that I was drunk. And I remember not wanting to come out of my room the next day. And then I had to go to work, the Shell station on the corner there. You know what I'm talking about? And I remember saying to my boss, I don't know if I had sex last night. And this haunted me for years. I mean, it was really damaging. And I don't know who gave those guys my keys. I don't know how the first guy got the keys to my car. I don't know, where the handoff was. The one guy, the first guy, the one that actually tried to penetrate me, is someone I would never in a million years. He was not on my radar. He was not on my I like you boys. The second guy was someone that I knew, and I mean, I didn't want to get in the back of my car with him and do any of that. I remember we used to have this fair in school, where you would go up to the elementary schools, a Halloween fair or fall festival. And one of the things you could do at the fall festival was get married to someone. Small town Texas, a thing for kids to play married. And I remember this guy, the second part of the night, I had married him when we were little kids at the school, and I had a little marriage certificate, and they gave you these rings. So traumatic thinking about that was an activity for kids to do at a carnival. So I knew him in that way. But I consider myself a girl that got out of a field. You know, I survived my field in that I wasn't murdered. I didn't survive it emotionally. I mean, I would say until my 40s, it ruined the intimacy in my life. And then when things happened with the Supreme Court hearings and Christine Blasey Ford, that kind of brought it all up again. And her testifying, I remember exactly what happened because it sticks in your brain. Like, it's science that it sticks in your brain. So that's one of the reasons I want to do this, is because I think there are other people out there that didn't get out of their field. And there are other people like Angie. You know, there are more girls that were just murdered in a field and written off. And then there are girls that got out and still try to move on with their lives. And I've been asking this of all of the guests that I've talked to. If you're comfortable sharing, did you have any close calls with any boys in school? Any scary nights that you feel comfortable talking about?
So, yeah, same thing. I mean, I was also assaulted. Since you're asking me, I wasn't going to say anything, but by a boy I liked. And it was my junior year, and I was not drunk. I remember every single thing, and he was not drunk. And he knew I liked him. We were at a party, and then he's, you want to come back to my house? And I did. And actually, I drove to his house. And, we were talking and then started making out, and one thing led to another. And then I was like, well, I'm ready to go. And then I wasn't allowed to go. And I remember, because I had gone, so silly, I'd gone to see Def Leppard in concert at their Hysteria tour, and I had the Def Leppard Hysteria shirt on. It was Friday night, yeah. And no, it was Saturday night. And I just remember trying to fight, and it didn't work out. And he ripped my shirt. And so the whole time this is happening, I just remember I just was concentrating on the fact that I was pissed off that he ripped my shirt. That's all I was just thinking the whole time. Just not trying to think about what was happening. But I was bruised. My lower part of my body was bruised badly. And I never told anybody. I went home. I got up the next morning and had to go fucking build a parade float for homecoming in my friend Jamie's house. And he was older than me. He was a year older than me. And so we had a junior float we were making, and there was like a ton of us there. And I was just a zombie. Like, what just happened? Like, I just remember thinking, and I never told a soul about it until after, I think I was in my 30s.
You were raped. Like, you were actually raped.
It was bad.
Violently raped.
And
by someone that you had known. How long did you know him?
I remember him in junior high, and he had a long-term girlfriend that they had just broken up. And I remember I was so devastated because I liked him. And I remember, like, a couple of days later, his girlfriend came by my house and wanted to talk to me. And she said, "Hey, I know you were at his house the other night. You know, what went on? Like, did he, like," and I was like, "Oh, nothing. We just talked." Like, I totally lied, 100% lied, and didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody for a long time. And then when I ended up telling Tracy, my friend Tracy, my first kiss, Tracy, one night. He and I are still really close.
In your 30s. In your 30s is when you told me.
Late 20s, early 30s. It was years later. And he was like, "Oh my God, Holly, you realize that somebody has filed charges against him?" for that. Like somebody else brought charges like years after, like a couple of years after it happened to me. And I felt like a piece of shit for not saying anything because it had happened to somebody else. And but I didn't, I was like, no, what am I supposed to, like, I didn't know. It bothers me. So that bothers me more than anything is that I didn't say anything until later in life. And then it happened after it happened to me. It happened to somebody else. Maybe it could have stopped there. I don't know, but I'll never know. But he never got convicted of it. He ended up being a cop. He tried to friend me on Facebook a couple of times. And I was like, and he tried to talk to me after that. And I was like, I can't even look at you. Like, I can't, like, he didn't, like, I don't think he thought, I think he was used to doing that. I don't know. But as same with you, it's very triggering.
I'm so sorry what you went through. It's hard to say, oh, that's worse than what happened to me, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I'm sorry that yours was even more traumatic and intense.
I was so hurt more than anything. That I was mad, and now as I'm older, I was mad at myself for going over to his house. Because as girls, well, what did you expect? What do you think was going to happen? You went over his house. I wasn't forced to go to his house.
Well, exactly. And I never told anyone until I was in graduate school. I told a therapist. I told a male therapist what happened. And I said, I've never told anyone this. It's like destroying me. I have to share it. And his response was, okay. And then I never told anyone again for a long, long time because I was like, oh, I've made this into something that it's not. Imagine being me. I was announcing I want to lose my virginity. So, of course, I got what I deserved,
No, that's not how that works, Julie.
I know that now, but I didn't know it for a very, very long time. And the girls whose party it was, who is just a wonderful, dear, dear person, a friend in my life, I kind of cut her out of my life after that and got back in touch with her around 2017. Took her to Cracker Barrel in McKinney and said, I really love you. You have such a place in my heart from when we were in school. I want to tell you why I kind of never talked to you again after high school. And then I told her what happened, and she was just like floored. She was like, I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell anyone.
Did you see the guys that assaulted you afterwards?
Oh, yeah. And I had a similar incident in that the guy who actually tried to like penetrate me, he was dating a girl that was in drama with us. We were all in a play together. You, me, and her. And she was like, oh, I heard what you did with my boyfriend, And so she was mad at me thinking, that I was hooking up, wanting to screw her boyfriend. When the real story was someone gave her boyfriend my car keys. And I will say I've recently come to the revelation I could have given him those car keys. I don't know. I can't imagine anyone was letting me walk around with my car keys at this party. I really want to know who gave me the keys. Who gave my keys to this person?
Because the fact is, they took advantage of you when you were completely drunk. It doesn't matter if you walked up to them and handed them the keys and said, let's go for a drive or whatever. That doesn't matter.
Right. I was not in a position to give consent.
Yes, exactly.
And that's taken me till my late 40s to be able to say that and realize that and actually believe it.
Talk about how Angela was taken advantage of, probably, or obviously. Like, you're right. That what happened to her could have happened to any of us, and that's probably why we relate to that, and it hits us so hard. And you want to tell a story.
Yeah, I mean, they met up and said, hey, we're gonna go to this field. We think there's actual marijuana growing out there. That's why they went to the field. So she went to see marijuana growing in the wild, and she was beaten and murdered.
I didn't know, which breaks my heart even more. To have somebody have to be shot is one thing, but to have somebody physically put their hands on you and beat you is so personal. Like why did he?
They hit her with the gun, with the bottom of the gun. They hit her with that in the face multiple times, is what the coroner believes. A 100-pound, 5-foot-tall girl.
God.
What do you hope people will get out of hearing Angela's story?
I hope they remember her specifically and how fleeting life is sometimes. And if you're a friend of somebody's, or you say you are, maybe, and I didn't do this, maybe check in on them more than you are.
You might be thinking, how does this have anything to do with Angela? Angela wasn't raped, but she was emotionally abused. Well, the point is, it's about all the women and girls you know in your life. Here is a sample of statistics that's just the tip of the iceberg. According to the organization RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, every 68 seconds an American is sexually assaulted. Younger people are at the highest risk of sexual violence. Ages 12 to 34 are the highest risk years for rape and sexual assault. 1 out of every 6 American women has been the victim of an attempted or completed rape. And it's honestly about anyone you know. It's not just happening to women. About 3% of American men, or 1 in 33, have experienced an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. Transgender college students are at higher risk for sexual violence. 21% of transgender, genderqueer, non-conforming college students, TGQN, have been sexually assaulted, compared to 18% non-TGQN females and 4% of non-TGQN males. American Indians are twice as likely to experience a rape or sexual assault compared to all other races. One of the original reasons I wanted to do this podcast is because I thought Angela was also a sexual assault victim, and that made me feel closely connected to her. During the research process, Deputy Sheriff Investigator Larry Dennison said there wasn't enough of Angela's body recovered to even know if she was sexually assaulted. Emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, and violence is happening right now to women and girls we all know. As we end this episode, I hope if you see something, you'll say something. And if you need help, please visit rainn.org, RAINN.org, or call 1-800-656-4673. Let's not leave any more girls in empty fields. True Texas Crime, The Significant Life of Angela Stevens is a North End Burgers production. Recorded, hosted, and written by me, Julie Dove. Carrie Southard Hargrave is the executive producer. Studio recording by Mike DeLay, Real Voice LA. Sound design and mixing by Real Voice LA. Additional recording by JBM Studios. Opening music, The Colonel, courtesy of Zachariah Hickman. Closing music, Night in the Prairie, courtesy of Derek and Brandon Feicher. Special thanks to Jackie Stevens Tower, Amy Harper Fritz, Deanna McDonald, and Jennifer Rich. The views expressed by this podcast host and participants are solely that of the person speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views of any employer, company, institution, or other associated parties.